Hi, and welcome to CSCMP's Member Mondays. I'm your host, Timothy Pajak, and I'm the Membership Engagement Manager here at CSCMP. Today, we're very delighted to have Thomas Moore, Managing Partner at Transportation Warehouse Optimization, and the head of a few other programs and a longtime CSCMP member. Tom, welcome.
Thank you.
Tom, why don't we start with sharing just a little bit about your current roles and just a little bit of background on your companies. I know your main firm is a software solutions provider that focuses on reducing transportation costs. What sort of innovations are you working on there and at some of your other companies?
I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur, for the want of a better terms, and I've started 3 companies in 3 related areas, all supply chain. And supply chain is all these links. Unfortunately, there are a lot of gaps in some of those links, and there are areas where none of the big software vendors have been able to manage. So we've climbed into those niches and done things like optimized load building, optimized case picking and truck loading, putting a brain over the top of the warehouse management system, as well as looking at the whole network and planning deployment in such a way that we don't have bunching of product hitting a distribution center all at once or hitting a carrier all at once and trying to get that put through the system. So done a number of things, most of which are really focused around what we call convergence. Okay, I didn't come up with the idea. Gartner came up with the concept that says, we've got planning over here, we've got execution over here, and there's always been this big gulf in between. And as much as we can converge between the planning and execution to make them fit together, we will improve the total supply chain. So that's my background in a nutshell.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that background. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing, either in one of those roles or just things that you're seeing, and how are you managing it?
Everybody's seeing talent acquisition as being a problem, right? Because we need special people who actually have, I'll call it a little bit of dirt under their fingernails, who've done some work in supply chain, as well as having that analytical capability to build software that is practical and works. That's the important thing. It's got to be practical and works. The other problem we have is really getting people to understand. There's very much this concept, everybody knows what planning is, everyone knows what a TMS is, everyone knows what a warehouse management system is, etc. And no one's actually thought about how you put those things together and manage across that point. So, we have a kind of a pioneering problem, right? I'm sure at some stage 40 years ago, maybe before I was in here, no one actually knew what a warehouse management system was until we actually came up with this concept. Or no one knew what MRP was 50 or 60 years ago. So we have to educate a number of people to understand, hey, you can fill these gaps. Example, when we talk about load optimization, for example, deployment load optimization from plants to warehouses, everyone says, oh, but my loads are always full. Well, we track data that tells them that's just not true. Okay? Most loads can actually get 1, 2, and sometimes even 3 more pallets put on them. So, we have an education
They're
problem.
full of air. Yeah.
We have an education problem, and that's a piece that we have to deal with, is getting people educated, is to say, oh, golly, we can fill that gap between planning and execution and make both sides happy.
And what disruptive forces, what other technologies do you see having the biggest impact on supply chains? And, everybody's talking about AI, ChatGPT, all that stuff. But what do you see coming?
Now, there's a place for AI, let me be clear. Okay? And AI is doing a phenomenal job in helping with forecasting. AI is doing a phenomenal job with ChatGPT for a help system, something we're working on. But also there are some places where AI can help us. We have a need to build loads very, very quickly when we're doing some iterations across a network. And we can't wait for days and days and days to get things done. So we actually use reinforcement learning. But overall, the complete thing is there's a lot of tools out there. And unfortunately, we've got the hammer and nails complex going on right now. To a hammer, everything is a nail, right? And our challenge right now is, we need to pick the right tool to do things. For example, if you're managing a network and trying to do constraints across a network, linear programming, which has been around forever, is by far the most effective tool to manage capacities, et cetera, across a network. Combine that with AI, and now you've got something that really does work. So, a lot of technology challenges, and part of the technology challenges is making sure everybody doesn't just look at the shiny new thing and say, oh, those old stuff is useless now. Well, no, it's not.
It's about working with it and adapting it to, it's about optimization, right? You're optimizing how this old thing can still work within a newer framework, and not just abandon all the processes and success that you might have had with that thing. So,
Tim, stop for a minute. You might want to reshoot that last piece because your voice somehow broke up.
Lost me there. Yeah, I was going to say it's about optimizing, right? You're optimizing successes and value that you have from something that may have been around for a while, and now taking it to the next level with the new technology that's coming in place. It's not about just abandon something 100% and replace it with this other thing over here. It's about having the two things work together.
We haven't spent a lot of time doing patents, but we just recently got a patent awarded. And the patent awards because we're using old technology and new technology, and we're bouncing between the two of them and iterating across AI and linear programming. You go, man, this is an innovative solution, and obviously no one's done it before. But we can also say, hey, yeah, we've got reinforcement learning, again, one of the great new technologies that's only been around 4 or 5 years. So lots of opportunities in the technology space to do optimization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to pivot a little bit, just because I know you've been to a lot of CSCMP Edge conferences. I know you're planning to attend again this year. What are you most looking forward to at our conference this year?
One of the things I look forward to more than almost anything else is catching up with some of the people that I have tried to mentor over the years. They're starting to age out. I think they're starting to mentor their own people now, which is good. That's one, they're catching up with folks. It's also seeing what's new out there, right? And it's not just in the sessions, but it's also in the display floor. Hey, what's happened that is new and interesting. And lastly, it's the fact that supply chain up until a couple of years ago, no one even knew what it was other than those of us who were in it, right? And now it is a force. And I think we can, as a group, leverage that force to get us, they talk about the proverbial seat at the table. So, in numbers, there is strength.
Absolutely. Let's take a jump backwards in time a little bit. How did you first get introduced to supply chain or logistics management, as it may have, all the different terminologies that have been used in the past? I know from your Meet a Member profile that we published last year that you studied in New Zealand. And I know there's an interesting story there. I'm thinking of that because of your train background. Tell me a little bit about that.
I'm a Kiwi and very proud of it. New Zealand has a national railroad system which goes from the very north of the North Island to the South Island. And of course, in between, there's this big stretch of water. Well, it takes a couple of hours to cross on an ocean-going ferry. And one of the problems they were having early in the city was all the, they call rail wagons, not rail cars, rail wagons were ending up in the South Island and couldn't be reloaded in the North. It was a classic imbalance. So as part of my master's, we worked on a set of rules to how to get those cars back to the North Island so they could be reloaded and brought south again. And turns out there were some pretty simple rules that worked very, very well that anybody can understand. You didn't need highfalutin optimization, but if on every train that had space, you put 4 extra cars, boom, they all got back and everything became smooth over a period of time. So it was a great learning experience, and I've loved transportation and supply chain and logistics, as it's been called ever since.
And lastly, what's something I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with other CSCMP members? Something about yourself, something you're working on, anything.
One of the questions I ask every person who I interview is, what do you do for fun? Okay, because we often think of ourselves as, oh, we do this for work. And the reality is people need to have this broad scope of things that you do outside work. So I'm going to turn it around to you, Tim, and say, what do you do for fun?
Well, these days, I appreciate you asking that, but someone laugh at this maybe, but I've got 3 young kids, and I grew up enjoying playing soccer or football and baseball. And so I have fully embraced the whole work from home, life work balance thing that we have going these days. And I'm coaching 2 and soon to be the 3rd in all of their sports. So to me, that's fun watching, the joy that they have playing a game I grew up loving. And especially it's enjoyable watching them learn it when they finally get something and improve.
I've worked out, by the way, that the best thing to do is to skip having kids and just go straight to having grandkids. Okay? Much better. You can give them ice cream for breakfast and then send them home. It's a wonderful situation. So I'd highly recommend that to anybody starting out. I didn't understand that when I was starting out.
I appreciate you asking that. I am looking at the time, and it looks like that's all the time we have today. Tom, thank you so much for your membership with CSCMP for a long time. Appreciate you joining us for this edition of Member Mondays.
Thank you, and appreciate all that CSCMP does, not just for me and my companies, but also for the industry. Most appreciated.
Thanks a lot.